I can feel Halloween coming on. Welcome to our show, everyone. It's October 2025. You're in the neutral zone, MauiNeutralZone.com. We are sitting in the studios of our host, KAKU 88.5 FM, the voice of Maui. And we're simulcast on Akaku, Maui Community Media, Channel 55. We're up on the web, MauiNeutralZone.com. In fact, if you go up there, you can see a word-for-word transcript of this interview and all our interviews, and a summary. It's really interesting in this day and age, but we'll talk about that. I have a terrific guest today. I don't know if many of the people out there who can see this on screen, if you're on radio, you can't see it, but I'm in the studio with two wonderful people, Steve and Kat Blake, Stephen and Catherine Blake. Now, it depends where you may have seen them. If you're on Maui, you may know them because they've been here a lot of years. But around the world, they know them for other reasons. Steve, welcome to our show. Aloha.
Thank you, Jason. Thanks for having me here.
I really appreciate you coming and being on our show. Let me take these headphones off. Easier for me. I was sitting at Unity Church, and I was looking around and thinking, you know, I've interviewed all kinds of people. Look at the wealth of interesting people here. And I know these guys for a number of years, really nice. And I said, "You're Maui Memory Clinic. Would you like to be on my show?" And Steve said, "Well, I've been all over the world talking and flying around. I don't know if I would have a subject for." You do. Welcome. Steve, I'm going to read you his official one-line bio, although it's not enough because he is an amazing man with an amazing long track record. For how long have you been doing this stuff? Many years.
Many decades.
Decades. Well, he is a nutritional biochemist. He's written many books, including books on both Alzheimer's disease and Parkinson's disease. He works at the Maui Memory Clinic in Wailuku, helping people, what's a people, improve their memory and maybe sometimes their speech if they, DrSteveBlake.com. You know, I'm happy to have you here. I have been living in this world for a long time, and we have seen the world, the Americans grow. I remember there was a period, maybe you and I were little kids, where they were sort of turning, okay, president's plan to have physical fitness, and here's Kennedy, and now they're all getting to figure America's opening up gyms and all kinds of things to get us fit. How are we doing, Steve?
Not too good.
Not too good. Where did we go left where we should have gone right? What do you think?
Well, one of the ways that the food industry tries to manipulate us into eating a lot of junky, fatty foods to make us fat is to convince us that it's our fault for not getting enough exercise that we're all obese. But that's really not the case. No matter how much you exercise, if you eat a lot of high-density caloric foods, you're going to get too many calories and you're going to keep getting bigger. So it's really not the exercise so much. It's really the food.
So that thing about garbage in, garbage out, and volume. I mean, I always thought even if I was eating good things, if you eat too much of a good thing, you'll still gain weight.
There are diets, for instance, if you eat whole plant foods, you can't really get enough to gain weight. It's a perfect weight loss diet because you can stuff yourself all day. And the fiber in the food makes you feel full. And then you stop eating before you get too many calories.
And you can do this and also have meat, right? I like to think, used to be, I'd remember the dietary plan. 3 of these, 2 of these, and mostly was meat and dairy. Where is the chart these days? It's like more over to vegetables. You can have a little bit of meat, maybe dairy. I don't know. I think dairy is even still more questionable. What's your...
Well, as far as weight loss goes, I did a talk for Seabury on school kids and how they can keep their brains sharp and do well in school. And one of the slides was on weight gain for children. And the top thing that made children gain weight was not processed food or junk food or sweets. Can you guess what it was? Meat.
Meat.
Yeah. It has a lot of calories, and the calories are as fat, which are really dense.
I see. So, I don't know. Do you eat any meat at all? Rarely.
Oh, yeah. I had a juicy steak back in, I guess that was 1969.
Okay.
Yeah.
That answers that pretty good.
So, yeah, I've been eating plants since 1970 for 55 years.
And that old myth about you can't find protein in anything but meat, that's also out the window because...
Well, it's, it's an old myth. I heard it a few times. I have a dietary analysis program called the Diet Doctor. It's based on the United States Department of Agriculture Food Composition Database, where they take 292,000 foods and test them and line up all their nutrients, so including protein and each amino acid that's essential. So I wrote this Diet Doctor software so I can quickly access that and look at it. And my need for calories, being an adult man over 50, is 46 grams a day. And my normal intake is 73 to 84 grams per day. So I get more protein than I need eating just plants. And if I look at the amino acid balance, which I do, to see if I'm limited in lysine or any of the other amino acids, I'm not. I get plenty of all of the amino acids that are essential for adults.
Well, so all of you out there who are gaining weight and you haven't been eating any candy or cookies or all that stuff, now you're going to get rid of meat. But there are so many incredible vegetables. I mean, there's no lack of variety. 292,000 different things we put in our mouth?
Yeah, that's our choices in America. And
wow.
I'm sure well over 200,000 of them are really bad for you.
That's right. And they put things in them to make you want more of them, don't they?
Oh, of course. Yeah, addictiveness is part of the junk food system. And it's not just junk food that's addictive. For example, dairy products, eons ago, cows put this opiate substance, beta-casomorphin 7, morphine, and this opiate addicts the cow, the baby cow, to come back and suck on the tit. Well, the cows that didn't do that, some of their calves wandered off and they were just weeded out over the ages. So now when we eat dairy products, we get this morphine substance, which is really quite addictive. People try and give up cheese, and it's really hard because they're really addicted to it. And it also, if you've ever taken opiate painkillers, you know how they plug up your intestines, slow you down, make you constipated?
Yeah.
Well, so does dairy products. And they do it not just because there's zero fiber, of course that doesn't help, but because the opiates actually interact with the mucus goblet cells that produce mucus in our intestine and make it so we can't digest properly.
Wow. So our medical establishment is not only part of it. I mean, once they come into a doctor's office, you can tell me probably more specifically, doctors aren't really well versed on nutrition. They're really not too much interested in what you put in your mouth unless you put a scissor in your mouth. Then they're ready to get you. But have you spoken to many doctors over time and seen that they're getting it? Are we seeing any change in the way doctors think
I
about
have spoken
nutrition?
to many doctors. I've given grand rounds, which is to doctors only in hospitals. It's in Boston Medical and the John A. Burns School of Medicine and the University of Hawaii and Oahu and many others. And I've tried to teach doctors about nutrition. But typically doctors get only 3 to 5 hours of nutrition in med school, and they're not really taught which are the essential vitamins and minerals, which are the 2 essential fatty acids. They don't really know the names of the saturated fatty acids, so they're not really well versed. Doctors are great at drugs, surgery, scanning, and diagnosis. They're trained in certain things and not in others. But because of our society and the reverence we have for our medical doctors and that they save us when we need saving, a lot of people will believe them about food even though they are not all well-versed in food. A few are. I've talked to some who are very well-versed in food. But
Yeah.
I'd say it's the exception rather than the rule.
You know, since the COVID thing, we're now, at least a few years out of the, I guess COVID's still sort of around, but it's changed. It's not quite as frightening as March of 2020 when everyone closed their doors and went inside for a year or two. And here we are coming out again. We hear the word COVID. There's still people that are really just, you say the word COVID, they have a mask on. You say, wait, that mask is not going to stop. The information out there about what to do to protect yourself against things is.
I actually wrote a book on that.
You did?
Yeah. It's called Beyond the Mask. And so it's how to boost your immune system. One thing that happens, especially with us older folks, is that there's something called a decline of the immune system as you get older. It's not as strong, especially the adaptive immune system that can identify a target like the COVID and make antibodies against specifically that. And with proper nutrition, we can actually erase that age-related loss of immune power. And so I wrote a book about that. And now you're right, COVID is now down. It's still in the top 10 causes of death in the U.S., but it's moved down. Yes, it's moved down. Last I looked, it was 8 or 9 most common cause of death in the U.S. But the thing about COVID that's really scary is when we see people at the Maui Memory Clinic who are not the usual demographic of 70s, 80s, 90s, but they're younger, 40s, 50s, but they had COVID and they have brain fog. And they have tremendous difficulty in doing the tasks of life. They can't work, they can't shop, they can't balance their checkbook. They're in big trouble from this continuing brain fog that can linger and linger.
Wow.
Very scary stuff.
How does someone that has COVID and brain fog even know to find you? I mean, I'm glad that we're talking about it here.
Well, if people have trouble with their memory, then they, one of their friends at least can look up the Maui Memory Clinic and then they can come see us. And our neuropsychologist is excellent at analyzing people and finding out the strong and weak parts of their brain. And then us as a team, we come together to help people to think more clearly, help their memory. And for instance, we can design brain games specifically. If you're slow in execution, if your brain is slow at doing things, you can have card games and brain games that will speed that up. If your memory is hard, then there are other brain games that can be done. I work more on the nutrition side to make sure that the brain is both supplied with the nutrients it needs and not damaged by things that damage it that come in food.
Wow. So I imagine you do an intake session that's pretty extensive?
Well, the neuropsychological tests are quite extensive. It can last 2 or 3 hours. And, we want people to be well-nourished and well-rested before that. For us, we do generally ask people about their diet. And my wife is wonderful at finding ways to just adapt their recipes that they're already eating so that they can be a little bit healthier.
Great.
So we really try not to say, don't eat this. We try to say, well, why don't you try this instead of that? And see if that has an impact. The way it works is as we age and as we move toward Alzheimer's disease, if that's the way we're going, principally it's inflammation and oxidation that kill off the brain cells. With Alzheimer's disease, full-blown, you may have half of your brain cells already killed off. At that point, it's really too late to help a lot. But earlier in the game, with mild cognitive impairment, where people can still think, but they're not as sharp as they were, then maybe only a quarter of the brain cells are killed off or less. Well, we can stop killing off those brain cells.
That's terrific.
Yeah, it is terrific, and I think it's a really good idea. When we ask people who are already having a hard time thinking, what if you didn't get worse? What if you stayed the same and didn't get worse? Because the rule is you get worse every year. If you eat the same things that you're eating, you're just going to get worse. And the drugs are not that helpful. There may be a temporary reprieve in some people with some side effects that might be very bothersome, but they're not stopping the progression of the disease. The drugs do not stop the brain cells from dying. You have to actually stop eating the things that are killing your brain cells. How about that?
How about that? What about you? Well, we just had an offer, for example, of something that might tickle our taste buds, but will also tickle us in the wrong place inside. So is it mostly what you eat, would you say? I mean, I always wonder when I see such dramatic increases in different diseases, if it isn't just the diet that we're eating.
There are certainly other causes. Environmental pollution is definitely related to Alzheimer's disease and Parkinson's disease, most assuredly. So people who live in polluted cities, then there's a higher incidence of Alzheimer's disease. That's hard to change. But we can change their diet. And there are certain foods that are highly inflammatory, that inflame our brain. And that inflammation kills off brain cells, to put it succinctly. So we avoid those foods, then we don't have an inflamed brain. Our brain cells don't go away. But I think more important are the foods that clog up the arteries that feed our brain. Our brains really need blood sugar and oxygen. And if the arteries can't supply that, it's called perfusion into the brain. If our arteries can't supply that oxygen and the nutrients to the brain, then we don't think so clearly. And that, of course, is because of the usual clogging of the arteries, atherosclerotic plaque, the same stuff that breaks off and causes a heart attack or a stroke. Now, on a smaller level, we have vascular dementia, which is very common. I'd say incident with Alzheimer's disease almost every time. And that is where little tiny bits of this plaque break off, plug up an artery in the brain, and you've lost a little area of thinking ability. Perhaps some memories, perhaps the ability to do some math, or whatever area of the brain it affects. This vascular dementia goes on and on. All of this is due to high saturated fatty acids in the diet. So if you lower the saturated fats in the diet to the correct amount, which is on many caloric diets is about 12 grams per day of saturated fat. You can read your package and see what it says. If you do that, then within a few weeks, you may get better blood flow to your brain and start being able to think more clearly and remember better. So that's nice because you get results soon. And there are side effects. You're less prone to heart attacks, less prone to strokes, less prone to diabetes. Those are good side effects, but I have to disclose them.
Isn't it funny how we talk about this stuff? Are you guys listening to how funny this is? We pollute ourselves and create all these things that create all these problems. And we hear about it and we say, oh, yeah, well, a little bit won't make any difference.
It's funny, one study was called a monk study. There's been a few of them, but what's interesting is they had these monks and they're in a very controlled diet. And lots of monks, all eating pure plant foods. But some of the monks ate meat once a week. One meal a week, they ate meat. And then they looked at the health of the monks. And that was enough to severely damage their brains. How do you like that?
Wow.
And their arteries, of course.
Wow. You hear that? All those that stop at Mickey D's for a burger and any of that stuff, or now chicken, even chicken's on the list, right? Fish, all of them.
Well, I've written several scholarly papers. The latest one just a couple months ago was published in the Journal of Dementia and Alzheimer's Disease, a very good journal and a very good paper. And it talks about the 3 highly inflammatory, brain inflammatory substances that are found in foods. The most inflammatory has got to be lipopolysaccharides. These things are, you kill an animal. If you eat it, you're going to die because of the bacteria growing in it. So you have to cook it. When you cook it, you kill the bacteria, so you're okay. But the leftover shells of the gram-negative bacteria still circulate through your body, and we have surveillance cells, toll-like receptor 4, that see this going by and say, hey, we're infected. We have a blood infection. And they don't know that this bacteria is dead. So they make this huge cytokine storm, much like the cytokine storm of COVID. And so all these cytokines, inflammatory cytokines, run around through our bodies. They go up into our brain. They activate the microglia and kill off the brain cells. So this is one way that it works. And yes, these are in all of the foods you just mentioned. Yeah.
Wow. Boy, I'd say, what can we eat? Vegetables, plants, and how about fruit? Fruit is more sweet, but I guess you got to not do too much of that, right?
Oh, I think we can eat a lot of fruit. We look at the glycemic load to find out if fruit is too sugary, and that is an index of how fast it raises our blood sugar. And things like apples and pears don't raise your blood sugar quickly at all, and all of the berries are very slow. Grapes are very slow at raising your blood sugar. Moderate would be bananas and mangoes. So if you have diabetes, you should moderate those. But in general, whole, intact fruit, if you're chewing it, it's slowing down the absorption of the sugars and all those wonderful factors in fruit that protect the exact things that diabetes attacks. Your brain, your arteries, your kidneys, but they protect that. So fruit's wonderful food to include. All the vegetables are great, no problem there. Beans are underrated. All the traditional cultures eat beans in various ways, hummus and refried beans and all those ways. And they're really good. And grains, I know there's a kind of a huge attack on carbs these days. And carbs is kind of a vague word. A Twinkie's a carb and a purple sweet potato's a carb. And Twinkies aren't too healthy, but purple sweet potatoes are really healthy.
I've seen Twinkies that have been sitting there for years, and you'd swear that's a new Twinkie. No, I'm sorry, that's a brick now. It's been here a while. So that's really, so when I hear all this stuff, my brain just keeps going back to look at how sick we are. And we're not, as a country, we're not going in the right direction. Is it strictly education?
No, not at all. It's not education. If, for instance, there was a political will, if, for instance, our government wasn't controlled by the money of giant corporations, and food advertising is second only to car advertising. Okay, so a lot of billions get spent on that, and some of it goes into lobbying. So we don't have, for instance, it would be great, what if they actually subsidize fruits and vegetables and whole grains and beans and nuts and seeds instead of meat and dairy? That would really change the American health because, of course, we're sensitive to price increases.
I don't know how political this is, but Robert Kennedy, I know, who just became a health guy, right, with Trump. And there's been amazing number of people trying to say that all his science isn't based on truth. And yet, when I've looked at that science, in my experience, there's lots of truth. Is that just lobbies again? People that are...
Well, I'm a scientist. So if I write a scientific paper and I say, lipopolysaccharides are absorbed into the bloodstream in this amount, I have to provide a reference that proves that. And then people are free to go ahead and read that reference and find out that it really does prove it or it really doesn't. In my case, hopefully it does. But so that's what science is. Science means that you know where your information came from, each little bit. You have to know that. And then you see if there's a concurrence, and sometimes there's some side people who do an experiment, it comes out the other way. Sometimes those outliers are actually sponsored studies. And in reading food studies, I see sometimes that they'll say, well, butter really isn't that bad for you after all. And I say, okay, sponsored by the dairy industry, and they're comparing it to coconut oil instead of something perhaps a little healthier. So you do have to be careful with your science.
By example, you just said coconut oil and something healthier. Coconut oil has issues too? See, there we go.
Sure. I mean, if anyone ever analyzed the food, like I do all the time, they'd know that there's only 2 nuts and seeds that don't have vitamin E, a crucial nutrient to protect our brain and our arteries and hearts. And those 2 nuts are, unfortunately, macadamia nuts and coconuts.
Oh.
Mac nuts are great, but they don't have any vitamin E. The other problem is that coconuts have a ton of saturated fat. More than lard, more than butter, more than meat. Coconut oil is a good way to clog up your arteries in your brain. It's not oil anyway, it's fat.
I see. Oh, that's interesting. It's really coconut fat, not really coconut oil.
Not good for advertising, though. Say, I'm selling you a gallon jar of coconut fat.
That doesn't sound as appealing. You're right.
Yeah. Oils that are liquid at room temperature are called oils, and if they're solid at room temperature, they're called fat. The more saturated fatty acids, the more solid they are at room temperature.
I see. See, aren't we loving this? This is like you guys are getting educated. Let's see how much it's going to change your diet. That reminds me, you really are also involved, just like you're talking, in different studies. You have ongoing studies with Alzheimer's and Parkinson's and things. I'd love to explore, you're talking from so much knowledge and experience.
Okay. I'd like to tell you about the Hawaii Dementia Prevention Trial.
Please.
This was done at the Hawaii Alzheimer's Disease Center in Oahu. I designed the trial. I had a huge team working with me, and we ran the trial for 9 months, although it took about 2 years to put it all together and wrap it all up. And we took people in the beginning stages of Alzheimer's disease, and then we actually changed their diet in 4 ways. And we gave them 12 different supplements. And at the end of the 9 months, they went from beginning stage Alzheimer's to quite normal.
Wow. How do you get your patients?
Well, in this case, we recruited them in Hawaii. Actually, it was on KITV on Oahu, recruiting patients. And from the people who came in there, Hawaii Pacific Neuroscience, where I was working, they have 24,000 patient visits a year. So we have a large base of people to choose from. There were strict guidelines on who could enter the study. They had to be over 65 and not taking this drug, and a lot of conditions to get in. A lot of people wanted to get in.
And so I imagine you're keeping it going, right? You want to keep on testing it.
I'd like to, but unlike a drug study, there's no sponsoring for this. So I worked for 2 years without pay, and that's about all I could do. With the drug studies also performed in the same areas are well funded so that they can continue on and on.
But in these 9 months is a lot of study and a couple of years of analysis, and your results, how do they get presented to any official bodies that make policy change, or how does that work?
Well, if you wanted to give me, say, maybe $100 million, I could present them to some legislative bodies. Yeah.
What?
I don't think a single million is going to impress a legislature these days. Come on.
Well, you say that, but I'm wondering, I keep thinking there's got to be people around that aren't influenced by money.
Really?
You say we are not influenced by money.
No, not at all.
Well,
which is why I ran the study.
People hear us, right?
That's why I did it, because I wanted to see if the 4 food changes were pretty basic. Okay, so we had people eat a cup of either blueberries or strawberries or red grapes every day. That's not too hard. If they ran out, they could drink grape juice out of the bottle. So it's not so hard. That provides anthocyanins that go up into the brain and protect it from brain cell death. Exactly what we want. Another thing we did was we had people eat 1 ounce of ground up walnuts and 1 ounce of ground up sunflower seeds, so they'd get especially the 2 types of vitamin E that are in those 2 to protect their brain. Crucial. Another one we did is have people try, we couldn't change everybody's diet, but we tried to have people not eat fried, barbecued, or grilled meats, chicken, or fish, because that creates these advanced glycation end products that inflame the brain and kill off brain cells. We had moderate success with that. We had a team of dietitians who would train people and work with them every week, and that was tough. And the hardest one was to lower saturated fat. But that also was probably the biggest reason why the study was so successful, is to lower saturated fat down to just 12 grams a day. And so those were the 4 food changes we made, and then we had a bunch of supplements that were very specially created. I wrote a college textbook from McGraw-Hill on vitamins and minerals. And so I know about vitamins and minerals and what forms and quantities are necessary in order to keep the body going optimum level.
Wow, you wrote a college textbook, you know a lot of stuff, and you still need more than $1 million to change. You'd think that someone would listen.
Journal of Brain Science.
Aha.
Oh, yeah. Well, I did publish the study, of course, in the Journal of Brain Science. And you can look up the Hawaii Dementia Prevention Trial, and there's nothing secret in there, and you can do it all yourself. No big deal. There's no prescription medications involved. Hence, no sponsors. But I think that the way laws are made now are you give them money and then they make the law. So we don't have that option. I'm sorry. I wish I could.
Well, I worry about our world because of that change. I don't know if it's a change. I just
Been that way most of my life, I think.
Well, I imagine it's like that a lot. I just, I guess half of my life I've been sitting here in Maui thinking I could make a difference here. I'm still trying, and I still hope that people are listening, like you guys, because we are the world. In our world, at least I know in my world, now that I'm hearing this, it's like, how am I going to figure out how to get my partner to not think meat? I already told her that I want to do 3 vegetables to 1 meat, like change the ratios, but no meat at all is best. Huh?
Well, I tell you, there are now some really tasty things out there that look and taste and chew like meat, but they don't damage your brain. How about that? So if somebody's eating burgers and they're going to fast food and having a burger every day, we can up-level them one step by going to Burger King and getting a burger that is not made of meat, but it tastes delicious. It's loaded with saturated fats and sodium just like a real burger, so it's not that healthy, but it doesn't have those inflammatory things that destroy brain cells, so it's one step better. And it's no suffering because the Impossible Whopper is really, people don't even notice when when they eat them. They just go, oh, this is a good hamburger. In fact, we had my wife, we went to a potluck, and she brought spaghetti and meatballs. And one of our local friends was eating the meatball and saying, oh, you just can't get good beef like this anymore. Yeah, it was a Beyond meatball. And it is made of pea protein. And you'd never know it, though. I mean, the chew, the flavor, the taste, everything completely delicious. So there are ways that you can eat meat but not eat meat. And in fact, there's a zillion substitutes now: chicken, fish,
no,
beef,
but what you said,
bacon.
but we always hear in the news cycle is, oh, but it has other problems, that those kind of fake meats have all kinds of. Do they have anything that's accelerated in a negative direction, or not really? Finding them pretty good?
Some of them are as high in saturated fat and sodium as are the regular meats, but they don't have 100 other things in the regular meats that are damaging to your body, heart attack, stroke, diabetes, etc., and of course dementia. So they're a step better. And some of them are low in saturated fat, and some are fairly moderate in sodium too. So you can choose between these alternative meats and find ones that are more healthy or less healthy.
Ultra-processed.
Yeah, the key word here that people throw around is ultra-processed. And yes, you might call, for example, almond milk, ultra-processed food. Well, really, your cow milk's ultra-processed too. But the almond milk has vitamin E and calcium and is really good for you, and there's no downsides at all. It's just plain good for you. It's not high in sodium or saturated fat. So there are good things. There are good ultra-processed foods out there. You have to look for beyond just the label processed or not processed and actually look at the food and see if it's good for you or not, which is what I do.
I've been talking so much and kind of directing questions, and I can still do that. But when I have a guest on, especially someone as knowledgeable and gifted at you at having all kinds of subjects to pull from, what are important things that you want to talk about or you think are important to deliver to our audience?
Well, if you're trying to keep your brain sharp and your memory is fading a little bit and you really want to keep that brain sharp, there is, of course, the food changes you can do. The more whole plant foods you eat, the better. And also exercise is good, physical exercise. Studies are showing that if you can get into your aerobic level, not over your aerobic level, that could be dangerous, but just into your aerobic level, for guys like us, that's only about 120 beats per minute of our heart. But for maybe 30 or 40 minutes, 3 times a week, makes a tremendous difference in your brain power. So that stress is a big problem with thinking. When people have anxiety, that's often coexistence with thinking problems and the beginning of dementia. Sometimes if they can conquer that anxiety, then they also can feel a lot sharper in their brain. So that's another thing you can do. Social activity is really good for the brain. So if you get together with other people, you notice how when you get in a crowd of people, you get tired afterwards because your brain's really working, keeping track of names and people and smiling and all that. So it's another way to keep your brain sharp. So we also have brain games. There are apps these days, so you can find ways. You could play mahjong or chess or various games that keep your brain sharp. Unfortunately, just watching the boob tube as a passive listener does not really keep your brain too sharp. In fact, I think it tends to dull it with what I see. Yeah. So those are some ideas on how to keep your brain sharp. Nutrition's not the only way, but I think it's the most powerful.
I keep thinking, I think I'm sharp, but I have others that say, I told you this and you didn't remember. How do you really know where you are on all these scales? I mean, there's probably a lot more people that aren't as sharp as they could be. Do you rely on others to tell you?
Usually, yes. Most of the time when people come in, there's either the man or the woman, the couple is not thinking very clearly. And we can ask the person with the problem, but often it's more accurate to ask their spouse and say, how's he doing? Is he better? Is he worse? And if they're starting to think better and more clearly, then that's really good. In one case with a lady named Cora, who's given us permission to talk about her, she came in with diagnosis of Alzheimer's. At 2 o'clock, couldn't remember what she had for lunch, where she was, anything.
Wow.
But her daughter was fantastic. And she said, what can I do? I want mom to get better. So slowly, over the course of 2 years, every month we'd meet and we work with her, and her daughter would change her diet. And she got better and better. Interestingly, she got out of her wheelchair into a walker, onto a cane, and forgot her cane over the course of 2 years because her knee pain and inflammation went away because of her dietary changes. Just a side effect. That's one of those side effects you have to watch out for. and of course, she did take we made a supplement especially for our Hawaii dementia prevention trial, but only trial participants could take that. So I made this brain and body food, which is basically just vitamins and minerals that are just carefully chosen so that they're really helpful for your brain.
You can't see it from such a distance. This kind of stuff do you have a website and things that?
Yeah, drsteveblake.com. You can not only see this, but I have about 25 books I've written. I've written books on, for instance, migraines, autism, diabetes, arthritis. The list goes on and on.
I hope you don't mind. I'm going to put you'll give me some addresses. I'll put them on the screen so people can find you. And you on radio, drsteveblake.com. That's a good start, right?
Yeah, www.drsteveblake.com. You can see all of my books. And at the top, there's recent papers that I've written. If you're a more intellectual bent of mind, you can bend your mind around the papers I've written. Sorry, they're a bit technical, but the abstract might be intelligible. When I
looked at your website, I saw clearly. Once you look there, you'll say, "Well, how did Jason get that guy on his show?" Well, I've just fortunately met you. That was my blessing. But
we're friends.
Tremendous experience. And I mean, when I looked at all the papers and I saw how many years you've been doing this and talking at different conferences all over the world and really putting out your expertise so broadly, I just was really impressed. We're very fortunate to have him. We love having you here on the island.
Thank you, Jason. I appreciate you having me here. My goal is service. Neither of us are really that interested in money here, but service is important.
But it can't hurt.
I guess it can't hurt.
Just like you said,
it's a side effect.
That's what happened. That's how we're changing the laws. So we need a little money because we're going to, I wouldn't say even pay off. It's like open the eyes. I can't imagine anyone looking at this information from doing anything but wanting to share it so that we all get healthy. and
Well,
all
I
get
keep my
clear.
books.
I happen to
My
think
books are under $10 on the website. So you can download
good.
an ebook for under $10. I make it accessible to all. Sometimes people write me and tell me I'm in India, $10 is too much, and I just send it to them.
Right. So this is really a global. You have really global reach.
I
very
do
exciting.
send vitamins and books all over the world. Yeah, it happens all the time.
So a supplement like this one, I can't. Even with my glasses, I can't.
Yeah,
see
no,
this.
they're small.
Well, that's okay, but it's not as small as the writing on. I don't know. There should be a law that says you cannot have text on something that is smaller than so many points of size. Because man, labels are getting really hard for me to read.
Vitamins are typically very small. I have trouble with that too.
There
Sometimes there are two pairs of glasses to read
we
them.
go. Oh, that'll be fun. Stack them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
What's in it?
What's in it?
That's what he said.
Oh, what's in
Oh.
it? Essential vitamins and minerals, all in the right form and quality. For example, okay, with our brain, you've heard of Alzheimer's disease and Alzheimer's plaque, that amyloid, beta amyloid plaque that builds up in our brain. Well, in order to form, these genes have to make these enzymes, but there's two things in here that quench those genes. They put them to sleep. They don't make the enzymes, so we don't make the amyloid plaque. And during the formation of the plaque, there's a lot of toxicity and damage to the brain. So that's an immediate relief to your brain not to have the amyloid beta 42, which turns into fibrils and aggregates, and these are very toxic to the brain, and then it doesn't become the permanent amyloid plaque in the brain, the Alzheimer's plaque, the senile plaque as it's called.
And so this is good for everybody. This is not just for people with a problem, right?
Yeah. It's like a multiple vitamin, but written by somebody who cares more about quality and quantity than about profit. Unfortunately, the multivitamins I see on the store shelves are real junk. And they put in a token amount of the worst form of the things, and people think, oh, look, it has everything. But it really doesn't. And for example, the vitamin E in every supplement I see in every store, health food or not, Costco or wherever, it's fake. It's a mix of 8 different isomers, only one of which is real vitamin E. The other 7 are fake. 4 of them don't do anything at all. But it's not just that it's worthless. It's worse than worthless, because our bodies are going to take that fake vitamin E, implant it into a brain cell for protection. It is like a rent-a-cop with no bullets who can't walk.
That's an
It
interesting
doesn't
comparison.
work. It doesn't protect the brain cells.
Wow.
So you get your brain cells being protected by fake vitamin E. Not a good idea, but I know why they do it, because the real vitamin E is really expensive. It costs as much as everything else in the bottle.
We are being hoodwinked, but
Yeah.
these are those laws we go back to, right? They allow you to do and use fake this and simulated that. And
It does bother me that they allow this to be called vitamin E when it's 1/8 of it is one form of vitamin E. That does bother me, but that's the situation. The FDA has rules for labels, and you have to follow all the rules.
and they have plenty of room to not so follow, it seems.
Yeah.
Well, not so follow what should be. Wow.
Who knows? Maybe RFK Jr. will fix all that.
Maybe. We'll see how that goes. I hope that would be a really good thing, and not pick on him. Look at the science. I really appreciate those words.
I just wish he was a scientist.
Yeah. Well,
That would be nice. The head of Health and Human Services normally is a scientist, and that would be probably a good thing, so he could understand, science.
Yeah, it would help.
Yeah, it'd be good. But he does have some good ideas, and some ideas I think are off base, and we'll see if what happens.
Yeah.
Changing the FDA is going to be a big problem, because they are, how do you say, in the pockets of pharmaceutical companies, and there's some powerful moneyed interest not wanting them to change. So I think that if RFK or anybody wants to change how drugs are regulated, that's going to be tough.
Yeah. But that doesn't stop us from hearing it. and saying, let me look at this. Let me try some of these things. We can create our own study. We can do it a one-person study. I'm going to listen to something that I heard and make a change. I'm going to make a change here like immediately. I am not going to take some of these supplements that I'm going to figure out how to find. Like when I'm taking something from you, is there a way that people come to you and can compare what they're doing with what they could do? I imagine you do that kind of work
Oh,
too.
yeah. In fact, a lot of times people will bring a box of supplements or a bag of supplements into the clinic. And my wife and I have a lot of fun with 2 pairs of glasses on, reading through them and, saying, this one is worthless, this one is damaging, this one's pretty good, and looking through the supplements and just teaching people about, which are helpful and which are hurtful and which are worthless. And there's a lot of that out there.
Well, that is to me, that's a really important one.
Actually, understanding all of the aspects of a multivitamin mineral supplement, there's a lot there. There's a lot to know about it. For instance, that one of those things that protects your brain from building up Alzheimer's plaque is folate. Now, folate is how it's found, a B vitamin, one of the 8 B vitamins found in the body, in the food. But what you get in most supplements is folic acid, a synthetic thing that's something like folate, but not folate. Now, the real folate will never increase cancer odds, but the folic acid does increase cancer odds.
Oh. If
you get enough from different sources, it can increase your risk of cancer, and it's not real folate. But if you look at vitamin bottles, they'll either say folic acid or they'll say folate as folic acid, but they're not going to put in the real folate because it costs a little more. And they are making the vitamins for profit and only profit. And this is how corporations, that's what they do.
And you see, like I do also, the web is filled with, hi, this is Dr. X, and I have found this, and I have this. How do you really know who's out there?
I look the
wild
stuff
time.
up on Google Scholar and read some papers on the thing that they're selling and see if, they came up with this jellyfish goo that's supposed to help your brain. So I researched it and looked at it. And one lady at a lecture only spoke Spanish, and she said, is this good? And I was able to reply in Spanish, todo basura, which means complete garbage.
See, we teach languages here. Complete garbage, huh?
Oh, sorry, that one just didn't really seem to have an effect.
No,
but
that's okay.
There's a lot of charlatans and snake oil salesmen out there trying to push things on desperate people with relatives who are going down with their brain. And it is a desperate situation when your wife or husband or father or mother is having these problems, and people take advantage of those people, and I don't like that.
Here in Hawaii, we have lots of people that are obese, or whatever the new categories are. We have high incidence of diabetes. Is there anything about the local Hawaiian diet that you've seen? Anything?
You mean a bento box with big chunk of meat, white rice, and maybe a token sprig of vegetables? Yeah, Spam, yeah.
Spam. I know they take everything in the kitchen and the shed and the garage and put them all together and put some kind of glue.
Hey, that's a 5th food group in Hawaii.
Spam. And then they make flavored spam. I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah. One guy, an obese Hawaiian man in Walmart, was looking at a can of Spam and kind of squinting at it. I said, can you read this? I'm not supposed to eat too much saturated fat. So I said, yeah, okay, I can read it. It's 8 grams of saturated fat per serving. And I said, and there's 3 servings in this little can. He says, how much in 2 cans? That's what I eat.
Ooh.
So let's see, that would be 6 times 8, 48 grams of saturated fats, what he's eating at one meal, and 12 is your maximum per day.
Ouch. No wonder he's challenged.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that can be tough for, heart disease and strokes too.
Have you dealt with people with, I'm going to bring up one just because it's been interesting, Candida. I've seen Candida, to me, which many people think of as a female problem yeast infection.
Oh, it can be intestinal or
I know people with systemic candida. One, my ex-wife, for many, many, many years. And if not, they try to do antifungals that are very hard to get, and the doctors don't really understand enough even to know how to prescribe it or treat it. What do you do with some of these things? Are there natural things?
Well, it depends. Some people are willing to change their diet, and some people aren't. But I would suggest to people they eat a really healthy diet. And one of the things missing in most diets is fiber. I analyzed the Atkins diet, and we're supposed to get a minimum of 20 grams of fiber a day. I think 40 or more is much healthier. His diet had under 1 gram per day. And that's typical of paleo and keto diets. They have very little fiber. They say carbos are bad, but there's a lot of good fiber in a lot of those carbos. That purple sweet potato or the whole grains have a lot of nice fiber. And that helps our digestion dramatically. Candida can come from multiple sources. Oftentimes, after a run of antibiotics, you can get a problem with candida.
Well, she's had this. I mean, we're divorced since 1984, so I go back for years and years and years. She's restricted her diet to the point where it's hard to buy food. I don't know how to address it, and can't find doctors that know how to address these situations. What does someone like that do?
I would say start eating a really good diet, my definition, which would be a lot of whole foods, whole plant foods. And then most digestive problems like irritable bowel syndrome and so many others just go away.
Well, she's been wrestling this that's the reason I'm bringing it up, is because nutritious has been, candida seems to be, at least in her case, very hard to figure out.
It feeds off sugar, so
Right.
Sugar could be a problem.
No, she's super, so careful that, you want to get turkey. I mean, obviously she shouldn't be eating meat, but what do you find for an alternative? She is restricted on vegetables, so restricted. I keep wondering how to is there a way to look at someone's chemistry, look at food and see which things are going to match? That's not what you do exactly, right?
No, that's not what I do. That's outside my lane, as we say.
Yeah.
That would be a gastroenterologist who'd probably be looking at that and could do that kind of testing and find out what she's sensitive to. But again, for most things, I look at what humans are genetically adapted to eat. Okay, animals that are genetically adapted to eat meat have these dagger-like canines that stick down over their lip, and they have retractable conical fingernails that can actually grab an animal. They're fast enough to catch an animal, which we really aren't, and their digestive system is different. Okay, they have very, very different stomach acid, for example, and the length of the digestion is very short to get rid of the rapidly putrefying meat products. Ours is very long. It's 30-foot digestive. So if you look at the eyes, the ears, the trachea, most people who choke to death do it on meat. If you look at all the different parts of the body, you see that we're really not designed to eat some foods. And you look at other animals, if you look at an alligator and you think, well, is he designed to eat fruit? And you think of this alligator with his little stubby legs trying to climb up a tree, you think, well, maybe not.
Wow. Well, you are just such a wealth of information. I almost don't know which area and which direction to be going in.
Do we counsel people?
Yeah.
Oh, that was a good. We have about 3 minutes left, so
Okay.
those are the kind of things I need. You do counsel people, right?
Right. If you'd like to get help with your memory, you can have your primary care doctor give you a referral to the Maui Memory Clinic. And then Dr. Harding will probably evaluate where you're strong and where you're weak in the brain areas. And then he can, if you want to change your diet or work with nutrition, then we can help with that too.
That's great.
But if you don't, then there's other ways to help yourself.
Is it when getting a referral from your primary, is it covered under some insurance?
Sure. Yeah.
It is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Most insurances do cover it.
Terrific.
Yeah, sure.
Well, we don't have enough time to bring our guest, but next week, if you guys will come back next week, not only are we going to talk about the theory, but we're going to talk about practical diet things, and we're going to have someone who's going to, I hope she brings samples.
I tell you why you want to change things, and she tells you how to change the thing. Her advice is much more practical and delicious than mine.
Oh, well. But like you said, you're no fun because you tell the truth.
It's true. That's true.
Well, I shouldn't say that.
I agree, and you're right.
It
It is true that a lot of people don't want to change their favorite foods, and I'm sympathetic with that. But my wife can tell you how to still eat food that looks just like that, but is much healthier.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah.
So you guys that are excited by today are going to be excited by next week also. We're going to have Kat Blake here, Catherine Blake, and she is going to serve up for your pleasure choices and give you a little bit of a taste of ways that you can get healthy and still enjoy it. How's that? Isn't that the most important
That's
part?
her specialty. And I'm happy to live with a televised chef as a wife.
That's the way to go.
Yeah.
Well, we have only 30 seconds. Who could believe we ran through that? Steve, thank you for being here with us.
My pleasure.
I hope everyone will come back next week and keep coming back. Go to MauiNeutralZone.com. You can see these shows and more. I am going to play our music and get us out of here. We will see you again next week. Thank you all. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Jason.
Kat. Aloha, everyone.